Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and we're here with another familiar face. He's been on several times, even on during Zoom earlier this year. Jeff Anderson, who is co-president of Avoya Travel, which is one of the largest and most sophisticated, technologically oriented host travel agencies and travel marketing firms in the business. And we talked to Jeff earlier in the COVID crisis. But now they have Avoya just has had its very first of two virtual conferences. And so we wanted to touch base with you because ordinarily we'd be doing a live visit with them during their conference, at Avoya's conference, a number over the years. But we didn't have that opportunity this year. I was able to participate virtually. But we're going to find out all about what's going on with Avoya Travel, and they did make some significant announcements. And you're going to find about that and more on Insider Travel Report. First of all, Jeff, welcome. Where are you and where are you? I think that I'd seen this scene before. You were actually in your office, your palatial offices in California there. Right?
Yeah, we had our grand opening of our innovation center here in San Diego back in January, and we managed to stay in for about 6 weeks after that event, and it's been empty ever since. Our food bins over here, they all got cleaned out, and our refrigerators are empty, so the lights are off in the game room. So it's not exactly where we all hoped we would be.
No, yeah, I remember hearing about that. We wrote a story about your the center, and it looked great. But now you just can kind of walk the halls on your own, right? Oh, I think your father's walking around in the back there. So we'll
he's wandering around here somewhere. Yeah, we had an employee here a couple of days ago, and she said that she really almost started tearing up as she pulled into the parking lot, just with excitement to actually be back, because we haven't been in here since March 13th.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, at least you're there, and hopefully some people start to creep back in a little while. Let's talk about that virtual show, because this is the first of two you did. How did the show go from your perspective?
Okay, so we knew that it was going to be different than the norm. We knew that we had some good technology on our hands, and we had enough creative minds to figure out how to deliver the best experience possible without being somewhere physically. And for us, we really prioritized how do you build a relationship virtually, which is exceptionally difficult to do, right? We've all learned through the crisis that you can only be on camera so much during every day before you get burned out on it. Oh, yeah. And just by a lot of creativity by the team and engagement, it was incredibly successful. In fact, it's so odd to think that it was so successful that going forward, I can't imagine trying to pull off the same type of educational conference experience in a physical environment anymore. And
well, it's tough because, obviously we all want live conferences. We all want to interact, but I think most people think these virtual conferences do work and probably will could proceed even when we are allowed to meet together, because more people can get all the educational and training opportunities and hear everything. So you're going to have to almost do double now, because you're going to have to do the virtual and the live, right?
And you know what? That's exactly what our plan is at this point. We will do virtual because we believe that it's an exceptional educational format. Surprisingly, cocktail parties work really well digitally.
As long as somebody has the booze next to it and the glass, right? Yeah.
That's right. But we were amazed, and universally across our independent agencies and our supplier partners that were there, along with our employees, everybody actually thought that the way that we ran the cocktail parties, even though we were balancing hundreds of people, they worked really, really well.
No, it's right. Well, this is water, by the way, so we're okay.
It looks crystal clear.
Well, it could be vodka too, but let's not go there. Now, I did want to talk to you about, because then you had a press conference before, and we wrote about it before the virtual show. And you mentioned that Avoya is kind of seeing a light at the end of the tunnel as we emerge from the COVID-19 crisis. What did you base that on, and what are you indeed seeing in terms of bookings for the end of this year and 21?
Well, I think that there have been a number of things that have happened over the course of the last 7 months that knocked everybody on their backs. But as facts continue to emerge about this terrible disease, we found out as a world how we're going to approach it. And of course, there's a lot of arguments around that, but the CDC has been publishing a report since Q2. The first time that I saw the report was back in June, that talked about what the infection fatality rate was. Mm-hmm. And it was shockingly lower than the initial World Health Organization numbers when we all went into this in February, March, April. And so that started to give a little bit of light because that was the CDC reporting on this. And then I think that one of the big shifts occurred when we started to see cruising out of Italy. Kudos to MSC for pioneering this. And I think that was our first glimmer of, oh yeah, you can travel safely. Mm-hmm. And the model worked. And I think that the way that they executed on that, I was joking with MSC a couple of days ago, like, good job single-handedly making that sailing work. And so I joke with them, I know what a tremendous effort it was on behalf of everybody seaside and shoreside to make that work. But now look at how many times they've done it.
Yeah, now they have two ships in the water, and I think Costa has a couple of ships, and then the German-focused line AIDA is also up. So we got, I think, five ships in the Med right now working, and maybe more to come. And hopefully that, as you said, is a model to how we can emerge.
So I think science, right? The data from scientists say that if you're young, your likelihood of dying from this is quite low. If you're old, it's not the same. But we've also seen now successful implementation of creating COVID-free environments. And that is critical. What those cruise lines have done is they've created COVID-free environments. The NBA has done it. The NFL and MLB have tried to do it, but it is possible. And I think that's where light starts to open up. And I don't know where the tunnel.
Yeah, and what do you
know where the tunnel ends, but the lights. I see light.
We see light at the end of the tunnel, and from your perspective, what do bookings look like towards the end of this year and into 21? And of course, you also have rebookings because you have all those future cruise credits or future travel credits that you've worked on, for next year. But so is it looking good for 21?
It is once you get a little bit later into the year. There's still concern in people's travel plans. There's concern about health, and there's also the concern about inconveniences. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to travel if you're trying to get to a destination that's got really tight COVID lockdowns, or it's not even possible to travel to a lot of places, particularly Europe, that even though people want to go there, they're smart enough to look at the government restrictions over there and say, all right, well, I'm not going to book that one right away because the likelihood of it happening is pretty low. And I think people love the anticipation of travel. Nobody likes the disappointment of a cancellation. And so I think people travelers insulate themselves a little bit from that. But we are definitely seeing a really good take-up rate in terms of future cruise credit redemption, future travel vouchers. About 40% of the ones that have been issued through Avoya have already been rebooked, which we're told by a number of our suppliers that is either market leading or certainly far above average. So we feel really good about travelers wanting to go again. And then we're also seeing our cash bookings, right? Our new bookings, we are seeing those pick up as well. Now I'll caveat that just a tad bit. It's October 23rd, elections in 2 weeks. That's kind of playing with the numbers just a little bit. But, I guess if you're going to have an election disrupt travel trends like it does every 4 years, we might as well get it over with now. And for that reason, we actually see a pretty hopeful December, maybe a better December than normal, because there is so much pent-up demand. We'll have an election out of the way and the country moving forward. So
No, that's great. And although from my perspective, I'm so tired of this election, I want to travel. So I think,
Me too.
In fact, even at the beginning of this year, we were saying everybody thought this was election year, it'd be down, but I think the initial numbers were looking really good. And we were saying maybe people want to get away and forget about this for a while. But hopefully they'll more of them, at least when the election is over, they'll say, okay, time for a vacation. So we'll see what happens. Now, I did want to talk to you. We're talking of just about a week before the CDC no sale order is set to expire, which has been extended a few times. And indeed, when this gets out, it will be still before that decision. Either they're going to just not renew it, not extend it, or they are going to extend it again, and we're not really sure where that's going. Now, but the thing is, most cruise lines have made the sort of decision on their own not to begin until well after November. What you've been talking to a lot of cruise lines, both ocean and river, about when they will really restart. Why do you think it's taking so long, even beyond the CDC no sale order October 31 deadline? Why do you think it's taking so long to get back in the water? There's a number of reasons that I hear, but we all want to book cruises, but people are kind of, is it actually going to go? Otherwise, I'm going to have to do the whole thing again, future cruise credit for next year, right?
Right. I think at the end of the day, we've learned a lot through this. And the last thing that you want to have happen is for there to be a safety issue. So execution of a safe cruise or a safe flight or a safe hotel stay, those are paramount. And my hats are off to the products that have intentionally slowed down their own cadence for restart to ensure that travelers are going to be safe. And we've learned so much through this, but I think it's really about, like, we need flawless execution.
Right.
You never want to have somebody get sick. Like, we want to be respectful of each other. Masks are not evil. They actually help protect a lot of people. Are they perfect? No. Are they better than sneezing and coughing on somebody? Yes. So I think, listen, we had to have science catch up. And then, of course, then there's just the tremendous logistics of getting products rebooted.
Right.
And that is true if you're running a small sandwich shop, right? Or you're running a mega cruise ship.
Yeah. You have to bring the crew back. You got to get them all set. You have to make sure all the ports of calls and destinations are good with you arriving. We did, thankfully, the cruise lines have kind of come in and said, we will be 100% COVID testing for all crew, which is extraordinary. Nobody does that. We certainly haven't seen it with the airlines. They're kind of offering COVID testing if you want to go to Hawaii so far, but and then you don't get a COVID test to go to a hotel. So now the cruise lines are saying we are going to have fast, accurate, rapid, testing before everyone gets on, which I think is extraordinary.
Yeah. And when we go to the grocery store, the clerk handles every item that I've touched, in addition to the one in front of me and the one behind me. We've got to take personal responsibility for keeping ourselves healthy.
Right.
But we should also, I think it's right for us to also go out of the way. I believe there's a moral obligation for us to go out of the way to keep other people healthy as well. There's, of course, always balance. Health is a big, complex topic. But I think that the cruise lines are approaching this in a very, very superior way. If you look across every major industry globally, I think cruise lines are going to be one of the absolute best case studies for how to keep people healthy.
Well, let's hope that's the case, and we all want to get back to cruising. That's for sure. Now, let me shift gears for a little while because you did talk about something else in that press conference about how Avoya was really well positioned to get through this crisis, which is so incredibly damaging to the travel industry. And also to help your affiliate agencies during this pandemic. What is it about the Avoya model that helped you do that? Now, I wouldn't have expected you to say, yeah, our model was totally inappropriate for this crisis, and we couldn't affect it now. But I happen to agree with you. I think a home-based model, the technology that you have, really helped you get through. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're in an industry that's predicated on lots of complex factors, one of which is Mother Nature, which we don't control. And so we've always felt that it was really important for us as we were building a business, and we were able to use the internet as the foundation for where those businesses could be based. That geographic disbursement was always important. We didn't want bad weather in one place to tremendously impact our ability to serve travelers. So there is that kind of core foundation of, we think that the internet was worth embracing, and it may not be identical to the experiences that you serve face-to-face across a desk in a brick and mortar location. But there are lots of advantages to it that we think outweigh the face-to-face experience. But then secondly, we're just deep believers that entrepreneurs actually provide the best travel experience. We have found time and time again that because of the way that they're able to operate as independent businesses, that they can service travelers better. We found through our technology that we can really filter and funnel traveler demand to experts in particular specialties, by destination, by product type, you name it. And some of it comes down to luck too. Like we didn't know something like this significant was gonna happen.
Who did?
Yeah, right. And so sometimes you get a bit lucky. And in this case, with the CARES Act, a number of independent contractor favorable things happen, such as the PPP loans that they were able to get, the employee unemployment insurance benefits that they previously wouldn't have had access to. So there's just been a lot of things that have worked in their favor, and if it's in their favor, then it really ends up being in our favor as well, and for our travelers, because we didn't abandon our travelers through this process. We didn't send people home and furlough them and say, we'll deal with you in 6 months if demand comes back. Mm-hmm. Our independent agencies were able to stick around and stand firm in being able to support their travelers, which I think is just a huge testimony to the quality of entrepreneur that they are.
Well, let's just, how much attrition did you see? I know during that you said you weren't actively trying to get new members because you wanted to focus on the ones you had, but and obviously maybe a few left because they just didn't see a future in it. But did you see much attrition at all?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We're really actually, maybe we're surprised by how good this number is. We're impressed with ourselves. I'll leave it at that, and humbled. But to date, we still have 95% of our IA's sales volume from 2019. So if they did business in 2019, 95% of that is still with us today.
That's amazing.
And that is an incredible number. I think that, again, if we were operating in an employee model, that would be much more difficult to do than what we're dealing with today. But yeah, 95% retention, which we think is very exciting. And it explains why things have been pretty darn good. And the suppliers seem to continue to reaffirm the fact that we're doing well.
Now you've described Avoya really as a technology company, and how has technology helped you and your affiliated agencies, your independent affiliates, through this crisis? And what are some of those products and services, the technology products and services that you've introduced to help your affiliates survive the downturn? I know there are a number of examples. The one I was going to try is you've had the live leads program for a long time, but you actually introduced another level of that, via smart leads, and that's one. That was one that you introduced either just during the virtual conference or right before. Talk a little bit about that one first, and we'll go to some of the other ones.
Yeah, so smart leads, as opposed to live leads were travelers who were expressing their interest in a way they were pulling us towards them. Mm-hmm. Smart leads is a little bit different. Technology has advanced really substantially since we came up with live leads. And this time, instead of always having to say, hey, we need a particular customer interaction of they're submitting a lead form on our website, or they're picking up the phone and calling us, or they're sending us an email, we're able to actually kind of partner with travelers now by observing behavior. We think that in a very responsible way, but it really allows us to look at past booking history, past contact history that we've had with them and their behaviors. And we came up with this concept of smart leads. We score customers and then we present those opportunities to the relationship holder of those customers. So if you're an independent agency, you have the opportunity to claim smart leads and speak with your customers that our algorithms have identified as being kind of the prime people to talk to, not to go sell another widget, but it's really about, hey, these are people that we think that it's kind of prime time to offer service, just to have human conversations. So we're really excited about the new Smart Lead program.
No, and then you have some other products too. I mean, you haven't just focused on that's a major one for you. But you've also done new products. I believe talking about you're a very big cruise seller, obviously, but you're also focused on selling more hotels and resorts. And I think you've also introduced programs related to that as well, right?
Yeah, we launched a number of close to home initiatives on land. We also identified that one of the big opportunities for us, again, in trying to build relationships, we rolled out a full suite of new technology for our independent agencies called our Marketing Resource Center. Right. And that gave them the ability to be able to reach out to their customers, to build relationships with them in a very one-to-one format, but also highly automated, so that it was all personalized, all customized, but we were putting the independent agency in the driver's seat as it related to how they wanted to reach out and who they wanted to reach out to. And then the other big change that we made was, with all of these future cruise credits and future tour credits that were coming in, we needed an efficient way to have our independent agencies not be doing duplicate data entry. And so through technology, we partnered and we actually automated the vast majority of the process. So we're processing thousands and thousands of records automatically instead of manually. And so we've really just kind of tried to help our independent agencies focus on relationship, right? Move to relationship and not have them worry so much about all of the other challenges. And we want to pick up the slack there.
And then going back to one of your big sellers, cruises, you also, I believe, have improved your cruise search product to kind of give your affiliates the best possible way to find the best cruise for their customer, right?
Yeah, so we've been at it for a while. We rolled out a new ranking algorithm last year in how we were going to be identifying which sailings, which departures were the most appropriate given what we had seen and experienced with the traveler. And so we are always about serving the best value to the traveler. So we ranked everything based on value. And then we also help travelers now and independent agencies see exactly what the difference is between lowest price and best value.
Sure.
And that's part of our smart value system as well, which we're just really proud of, because the complexity for some of these products, it's one thing to convince somebody that they should take a vacation. It's a whole wild other experience trying to help them buy it the best way possible. Right. And I think that's where we've really tried to focus our technology on helping them buy travel the most efficient and effective ways. And of course, we've got to provide great technology to our independent agencies to do that.
Now, the other thing is the relationship that you've had with your preferred suppliers. I know you were talking about, you talk to them all the time. Now, how have those suppliers helped you as a company and your affiliates? And the corollary to that is, how have you helped them with, I believe, a program called Avoya Access? So talk a little bit about, if you could, the relationship with suppliers and how that's worked during this whole thing.
Well, obviously, we don't have much to offer travelers if we don't have our suppliers. So the relationships have been really good. There is no question that a number of people that we have worked with have had to make really difficult decisions. And we recognize that there is a difference between people, right, the people that we work with, and the decisions sometimes that corporations and shareholders have to make in order to preserve the long-term value that they can provide to travelers, right? If they all go out of business, it doesn't help anybody. So there had to be some constraints in place through this period of time. But we also know that there were so many suppliers that stood with us in the gap, knowing that many of the bookings that we had made were a year or two in the making. And these are bookings that we made in 2018, 2019, and they decided to honor the commission payment and continue to pay us. So there's definitely, listen, there's a lot of extra credit that some suppliers have earned through this process, and that'll carry them forward in the future. There was a lot of extra trust built through the actions of many of them in continuing to fund us. So we won't forget that help there.
Now, into the flip side to it, you also are offering the suppliers themselves access to your technology with Avoya Access, right?
Yeah, we've made it really clear for the last couple of years that we want suppliers to be able to work within our technology. The evolution of our technology continues to happen at a very rapid rate, and so we just kind of have decided through Avoya Access to increase relationships. Again, I'll just keep coming back to relationships, because as long as you have good relationships, like everything else just kind of falls into place. So we wanted to make sure that suppliers were able to connect through to our network more effectively than they have in the past, through to our travelers more effectively than they have in the past. And so really by creating some new technological products, we're really giving them an avenue or the ability for them to have Avoya be an extension of their brand. So there's a lot of unique initiatives that we're working on that front.
Yeah, it sounds like you've been really in great talks with all of your suppliers. Now, I wanted to turn briefly about how you have supported your affiliate agency members during this, and you have a program called Avoya Cares, if I recall. Talk a little bit about that and what that has done with your IAs.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what I was sharing earlier. We were fortunate that the CARES Act provided a lot of benefits for business owners, small business owners. And we felt that it was our obligation to our network members to continue to stream information to them. We had some very expensive legal and accounting bills at the beginning of this, as we're all trying to figure out what does it look like to operate in this new environment. And, how do you tap into the CARES Act? And that was a lot of complicated work that needed to be done to get a PPP loan. So we wanted to start sharing those resources out to our network. And so we provided legal resources, accounting resources. We helped them understand how to fill out different forms. And so it was really about us being there, recognizing we're all business owners. And as we learn, we wanted to share that with them as well.
No, that's great. And that, I'm sure it helped a lot of them get through. And you maybe have to do that again in the next few weeks if we get.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We're ready for it.
We hope. May not be before the election, although the latest news, I haven't really looked today and see where the status of talks are in Washington. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about. It was last year, I believe, you introduced the new 5-year strategic plan, and that sort of to take Avoya to 2025. And I asked you at the press conference earlier this month if the COVID-19 crisis has delayed that plan, but you actually said it has accelerated it. And how has it done that, and what have you done?
Yeah, so I think the foundation, first of all, it was a great question, because it's something that we've been talking about for months here is, are we going to have COVID slow us down, or is it going to speed us up? Doesn't seem like there's middle ground, right? You're not just treading water. You're either going to slow down or you're going to speed up. And so we just made the decision as a strategic leadership team and our family of shareholders, we decided that we were going to invest into the acceleration of this. A number of reasons for that was because we were financially strong. And so it was within our reasonable abilities to be able to ramp things up. So really it focused really in three different areas. The first area was independent agency technologies. We really wanted to build out new products to support them or to take existing products and make them more efficient by adding automation. And so, when we launched the 2025 plan, we certainly didn't see a speed bump like this, but you always plan for speed bumps. You never quite know whether or not it's going to be a volcano or a hurricane or whatever it may be. So the first one was for IAs. The second one is for suppliers, and we're starting to build out Avoya Access more and more for them. And the third one was just, we wanted to be more efficient as an organization. We knew that we were going to have to do more with less because that's what this environment called for. But we didn't want it to get in the way of our long range plans. And so we've really heavily invested in our people, in the tools that they use to support our network, to support our travelers. And we're very proud of that acceleration that we've taken.
No, that's great, and it's great that you're on track and beyond it. Because obviously crises seem to make everybody get together and say, okay, we have to do something, and we have to speed things up. You can run away and say, well, we have to shut down, but you're probably not going to emerge very well if you do that. So let's talk a little bit about the big news, which we led with in the story. It was kind of, I'll call it your modest proposal, which was at the end of the press conference, you introduced what you call Instant Commission 2.0, something that you said you've actually had in-house for a few years, but are now really pushing it to get your affiliates to get paid faster for the bookings they make. In fact, get paid in advance even before people have gone on to travel. Can you describe this program, how it works, and as well as what kind of reception you've had initially from suppliers? Because essentially it means they're going to pay some commission when all the work is done to get the booking, and then the bulk of you'll get 5%, whatever, and then the rest of the commission, let's say it's another 10%, you'll get when that booking actually happens, that they do travel. And you're doing, because otherwise you're not going to see money for months, as you mentioned earlier. 10 months maybe for a cruise that you make in advance like that, or a world cruise, things like that. And historically, that's the way it's worked. And I think what this crisis has done is kind of make a lot of travel agencies and hopefully some suppliers realize that system needs to be altered in some way to make it more equitable and to get money into the hands of travel advisors a lot sooner. So tell me a little bit how what this modest proposal is that you made, and also what so far the reception has been.
Yeah, so Instant Commission started about 10 years ago. We just wanted to find a way to help independent agencies get their commission money well before it was actually paid by the suppliers. And because people have expenses that come up, whether it's tires that they need to replace, or a birthday party, or a trip that they want to splurge on. We wanted them to have the opportunity to kind of reach forward into their commissions that they had been booking, and we wanted them to pull it forward to today. So fast forward, we've been doing this internally, and now it's time for us to start working with suppliers on this. Every supplier is processing this at their own pace.
Right.
I think what's important is to recognize that these conversations have been going around the industry for quite some time. They're actually, they're highlighted because of COVID-19, but they are not problems only because of COVID-19. Right. They're certainly exaggerated because of what we're going through today. But there's a major cash crisis coming for all of the travel distribution system. Because so many of the cruise lines decided to continue to pay commissions, there has been a good float for many agencies on the cash flow side of things. But because demand has been suppressed now for 7 months, you don't have the same stream of bookings to be drawing on for those canceled sailing commissions that the cruise lines were still doing. So there's a cash crunch that's coming. I've always felt that it would be the fall by the time that this started to gain a little bit of momentum, and We've seen now at least one partner, Colette, who has put out a press release about the work that they are doing. They haven't used our solution, which we don't care. Like, we just love the fact that they're doing it, and that they're now guaranteeing commission based on bookings.
Right.
And that's really exciting for us as an industry. Our position is that this is not just for Avoya. This ought to be for the entire industry. And suppliers for a long time, their finance departments have been able to leverage a system by which they could get away with paying us much later in the cycle. But the reality of it is COVID-19 has pretty much broken that.
Right.
And it's going to take time for some of the finance teams to recognize how deep that problem is. But there's absolutely going to need to be a cash infusion by suppliers into the travel distribution channel. And fortunately, that should be returned to them in new booking deposits that come back in. So, we see this as a bit of a give and take. There's some risk behind it, but there's also a lot of reward. If your distribution system doesn't have enough money to go out and market, and doesn't have enough money to pay the bills today, they're probably not going to be very effective in filling up your product. And so I think suppliers are smart enough to know that. Now the next step is, okay, now what are the processes? What are the mechanisms that we need to put in place to be able to do that? And that's where we're sharing pretty openly with suppliers how we've done it and how we would continue to do it if we were to be the solution provider for them on a managed platform.
Now, one of the things that part of that program, you were suggesting that if we do have indeed some commission that is paid almost immediately when a booking is made, say 5% as I was talking about, and then you get the remainder later when the travel actually happens, is that travel advisors would even get to keep the initial 5%, even if that booking doesn't happen. I know that's going to be more of a challenge, I think, to some of the suppliers, but have you heard any good reception to that idea?
Yeah, so the reception, I think, is curiosity at this point. Nobody has flat out said, no, this is a terrible idea. Maybe some start with this predisposition because we're not the first ones talking to them about it. But the reality of it is, as the crisis gets bigger and bigger, they have to open their ears more. Finance teams are going to have to address this issue differently than they did a few months ago, where the crisis is so big that if they don't do it, they're not going to have support. And on the flip side, I think there will be a little bit of pressure, not just by the travel distribution partners, but competition will catch up. There are some that have said, yes, we're going to do this. Sure. And now we're figuring out the delivery mechanisms for that. And so, we're just about to be on this precipice. And I believe what will happen there is that suppliers that are on board early with the program will see share shift because everybody's desperate for cash for the work that they're doing today. They can't wait 12 months. So it's just not a reasonable business venture the way that it was prior to COVID. And so if they want the support of the vast majority of sellers out there, this is just the new business condition. But it's not much different than many other upfront costs that they have to pay, whether that's technology or marketing costs or the post office. They're used to paying a lot upfront, and this is just we get that this is hard. It's a new stress, but that's what this business environment calls for. And I think the ones that are there first are going to be the biggest beneficiaries of the share shift that will come because people need money now.
No, absolutely. And of course, the change in commission structure is something I think all the industry has to take a look at. And of course, one question I didn't just thought about is the other suggestion is that travel advisors really have to start charging fees for planning. I don't know what Avoya's position is on that and whether some of your independent affiliates are already charging fees, but that clearly is something that would get cash in hand from the beginning.
Fees are really, really tricky. The question that we always beg is, what do we think is going to be motivating to a traveler? And if we, in our value proposition, are more expensive than someone else, that's just another reason for them to go book elsewhere. And so, there are certainly limitations. There are certainly opportunities for a fee structure. But I think in the same way that travel agencies are pretty strapped right now, so are travelers. I think travelers need extra motivation. Airlines have been open for business, and yet we're still hovering around 35% of last year's numbers.
Right.
And that's even with incredibly good rates. Now, of course, that's because government imposed restrictions have made it hard to travel. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that travelers need motivation too. They're expecting motivation.
Sure.
And so throwing fees on gets to be really complicated. And it's just not a model that we've favored super heavily with our travelers. We've not favored that model with our independent agencies. We don't like fees. We like people on vacation. And we think that if people are on vacation and we do a good job, they will repeat and come back to us over and over again. So we're more about getting repeat and retention than just that one-time fee.
Got it. Now, just to close this out, are there any other things that came out of this very first Avoya virtual conference? I know you have a second one planned, I think, in early December, if that's recall, that you want to talk about. Is there anything else you want to get out to your IAs, your agency affiliates, and to travel advisors in general?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, obviously I heart our independent agencies, but let's be real. We're all in this together, regardless of what side of the coin you're on. If you're on the supplier front, if you're on the travel distribution side of things, we're all in this together. We actually have to solve these problems together. If one area lags, it'll drag the rest down. So we've really got to partner up here, find new ways of working with each other that didn't exist before in a way that benefits travelers first and foremost. And then, I think in terms of what's coming up, we've obviously got our next virtual conference, kind of part 2 of our 2020 conference happening in December. And I'm certainly hoping that there will be more clarity on what products are open and what products are still closed.
Hopefully we will see some cruising in the Caribbean and elsewhere.
I hope that by that point that it is imminent, and that means that we're in a healthier world. That probably means the vaccine has been approved and it's being distributed. So there's a lot of good things. We got our fingers crossed for early December for a lot of good news coming our way.
That's great. Well, you and I got to get on that first cruise, man. We got to try it out and tell everybody it's good. Maybe no buffets, but we'll be fine with that.
Yeah, we'll make it work. Make it work.
Anyway, Jeff, I want to thank you for taking a lot of time, great time to talk about all this stuff. And congratulations on this very first virtual Avoya conference. And I'm looking forward to the live one next year. We'll see what happens, and hopefully we'll be good. And again, we're looking forward to do some cruising. You and I have cruised and gone on a lot of inaugurals together. I remember hanging out with you in Barcelona once. It was great.
Oh, yeah.
Years ago. So we want to get back to sailing. So again, thank you so much for taking so much time with us.
Yeah, James, thank you for all the work that you do helping all of us make this happen. We know that travel is really good for people. It's extraordinary for culture. It's extraordinary for so many reasons. And we're just excited about getting going again.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.